All right, welcome to another trade-rific episode of Delayed Offside. We're going to start today by taking a note from Drake and starting from the bottom by looking at some of the worst trades that our favorite teams have actually made. Now, since no one actually prepared for this, this will be quite interesting to see how well this went, and we'll start with there. But I feel like I'm getting like a lot of energy from Sanjay's corner right now that he's got it set in mind. So I'm going to start with Sanjay to tell me the worst trade that he remembers his team making. Go ahead, Sanjay.
All right. Well, let's take you back. I can't remember what year it was. I'm going to say 2003. This sounds about right. Calgary Flames, you're playing, they're not having a great year. And their number one center, Mark Savard, he's having a feud with his coach, Greg Gilbert. And at the time, GM Craig Button was like, we got to do something here. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to trade the player. So he trades Mark Savard to the Atlanta Thrashers for Ruslan Zanulin. I think that's how you pronounce the guy's name. Never plays a game in the NHL. Mark Savard goes on to have 90-point seasons, 100-point seasons, a terrific career. But you're like, okay, like he got rid of the player. Maybe Greg Gilbert is a good coach and we'll continue with him and we'll have success. He fires Greg Gilbert 3 weeks later. And I don't know why. To this day, I think that is the worst trade in Flames history because we certainly could have used a Mark Savard in the 2004 playoff run. I'm just going to throw that out there. So for me, unfortunately, Mr. Craig Button, that is the worst trade in Flames history.
Ryan, you were pretty confident when I was saying what we were going to do, that you had one down pat in your head. So let's hear, what is the worst trade that you recall the Leafs making?
Yeah, well, I mean, this isn't the worst trade I would say in Leafs history, but definitely a recent one. And that would be the trade for trading away Nazem Kadri for Tyson Barrie and Alex Kerfoot. I understood the reason why it was done. Obviously, Kadri had gotten himself in trouble 2 years in a row in the playoffs, gotten suspended, cost the team big time. I mean, really, if he was in the lineup against the Bruins that last playoff round, the Leafs probably win. Like, it really hurt. But at the same time, like, I really wasn't a fan of it because I thought there's no way Kadri's going to do that 3 years in a row, right? And the major strength of the Leafs was down the middle. You had Matthews, Tavares, and then Kadri. Instead, you bring in Alex Kerfoot. He's been okay at center, but really he's played better on the wing. And then obviously Tyson Barrie. We just had him the 1 year. Babcock didn't play him very well. He played better under Sheldon Keefe, but still 1 year and gone. And meanwhile, Kadri's been doing amazing for Colorado. And I think, this trade deadline, we'll get into it, but obviously the Leafs were looking to bolster that bottom six, and they might not have needed to if they still had Kadri in the lineup.
At the time that it happened, how do you remember feeling?
I remember being upset because Kadri was such a great centerman. Like, really, he was a number two playing on our third line. He was great in terms of being able to like shut down players. He brought like a lot of that grit and physicality that the Leafs didn't really have a lot of. Why are you nodding? You're just upset Homer. Because he shut down McDavid.
So I wasn't. Your team do that.
I wasn't happy with it. Yeah, I wasn't happy with it. But at the same time, I remember being impressed with the way that they maneuvered the cap to make that deal work. I remember Colorado eating a lot of the salary, and they were only paying, I can't remember how much they were paying Kerfoot, but it was a very minimal amount under the cap. So it was very shrewd. It was very creative, a very creative trade. And I was hopeful it would work, but I just felt, Tyson Barrie wasn't the kind of defenseman they needed. We already had Morgan Riley. How are you going to have two offensive defensemen like that? Playing together. And I really liked Kadri, so I wasn't too happy with it.
Adam, you were early on with your head down in your phone looking up the trade. So I will. I'll let you go with the final one here, or the second final one. I'll throw one in at the end.
I've got two that I'd like, and one is just a slight mention. The first one, the main one, was the Oilers acquiring Bernie Nichols, Louis DeBrusque, Stephen Rice, and David Shaw for Mark Messier and Jeff Bukaboom. I think that burnt the Oilers because, they ended up winning a cup with the Rangers, and that cup ultimately would have been sixth in Edmonton, I think pretty much guaranteed, because a lot of those players
Whoa, that's a bold statement there.
What?
That is
They
a
would have
bold
won another.
statement.
They would have won another.
What year was this?
93.
94. Oh, 94 is the year that the Rangers won.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, what year did they trade Mess?
Good question. Let me just.
Ryan,
Because
why don't you
90
look it up? Why don't you look it up while Adam continues talking about his trades?
All right.
Adam, continue going.
The next one was one that happened actually was last year around the trade deadline. And it's just like sheer like fan of this player, Sam Gagner being traded away again for Andreas Athanasiou. And he brought nothing in the playoffs. Whereas I think that Gagner would have brought a lot more in a depth role, as opposed to trying to force speed with speed and trying to make chemistry happen with McDavid and Athanasiou.
I do have that date, October 4th, 1991.
Yep. Would have had a sixth.
Really? Because so 92 was when Pittsburgh won back-to-back.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're getting past Lemieux and Yager. And then 93.
94 would have happened. 94.
Now, that would have been interesting because Vancouver had a good team back then too. So I would have liked to see it.
Sanjay, I don't like your condescending tone.
Well, I'm gonna go. I'll do two here quickly. I'll do one that's off the board for essentially a team that's not a Canadian team or a team that necessarily any of us are fans of. But the Hartford Whalers trade away Ron Francis, Grant the Ant Jennings, and Ulf Salmuson to the Pittsburgh Penguins for John Cullen, Jeff Parker, and Zarli Zalapsky.
Oh, Zalapsky. I love Zalapsky.
Probably the worst trades in NHL history, bar none. Also cementing the fact
Zalapsky was so good, man. You don't remember Zalapsky?
Hey, you know what? I would take a Zalapsky Hartford Whalers jersey. I would.
Yeah.
But it basically cements the Pittsburgh Penguins winning their 2 cups. And the other one I'll go with is the 2 first overall picks traded for Griffin Reinhart from the Edmonton Oilers to the New York Islanders.
I thought you were going to Phil Kessel on that one.
Yeah,
that is by far what people could say whatever they want about how terrible Chiarelli was. That by far will go down as one of the worst trades in NHL history.
Yeah.
Because of one, who was drafted with those picks, and 2, just the fact that you could give up. You got a guy that played like 10 games and then you let go in an expansion draft, who is not even in the NHL anymore. So obviously, but you know what's not a bad trade is clicking like and subscribe to Delayed Offside. And with that, we are going to start the episode. All right, so this episode of Delayed Offside, we're going to start with our trade track recap. It's the most alliteration I can get in there. And we're really just going to focus on some of the big trades. I'm going to go over some of the information. I'm going to let the panel discuss some of their thoughts on it, throw in some things, whether they think it's a good or bad. We're going to do other things later today, including some Canadian team recaps, some winners and losers, and some other just roundabout news around the league. So let's get this episode going. We're going to start back with actually one of the first big trades to occur. And it's actually occurred on April 7th of this year, which was the New York Islanders receiving forward Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac from the New Jersey Devils for AJ Greer, Masson Jobst, 2021 first-round pick, and a 4th-round pick. Sanjay, you're a closeted Island fan. You loved Tavares so much you bought a jersey before he left with his PJs to Toronto. Taking a look at the Islanders, what does this trade do for them?
It just adds more scoring depth. I mean, this is a team that we know what they have, what they're made out of. They're a gritty team. They're going to grind you down playing that Barry Trotz style. They have good goaltending, good defense, and they just need a little bit more horses up front. And I think this trade gives them that. Going into the playoffs, they're going to have to compete with some good teams. So I think this is a great trade for them.
Are the Islanders now in a we look at that team? Are we thinking to ourselves now that this is a Stanley Cup contender more so than previous times?
I would say so. I mean, you look at them, I think they got the pieces last year. They didn't go all the way, but they had a pretty decent run. And I think they learned from that. And as you said, coaching is huge. Barry Trotz is one of the best coaches in the league. And you got, good players up front like Jordan Eberle and Jordan Eberle, so Matthew
Barzal.
Barzal as well.
Yeah, like why not name the best
one.
player on the team? Hey,
I just wanted to poke the Oiler fans, so
I don't care. Good for him, man.
My one question with it, I mean, it's a great pickup for them. Kyle Palmieri.
I know you had been rooting for him to come to the Leafs prior. So.
I had before they got Galchenyuk, he was the guy I was hoping they would get. He could slot in on that second line. He's having a bit of a down year, but he was still on pace for close to 20 goals in an 82 game season. And he can bring grit. He helps with the penalty kill, which is great for the Islanders, right? That's kind of what their mantra is defense, and he can do that too and provide some physicality. But here's the thing is I keep hearing, like the Islanders are better now and watch out, they're a contender. They're probably still a contender. I think they're still a great team, but they lost Anders Lee. And make no mistake about it, Cal Palmieri is no Anders Lee. Lee was on pace for a 36 goal season, right? Like he provides way more offense than Palmieri does. So, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that today they're a better team than they were before they lost Anders Lee? Because I don't.
Well, I think that's a really hard thing to judge with the type of team that the New York Islanders are. They are win by uniform, lose by uniform. So you've got skilled guys up front like Eberle, Barzal, and like no matter what, if Anders Lee is there, they're still going to shut down in the defensive zone and get their scoring chances in the O zone. So I don't know if it's that, it's a loss, but is it that huge of a loss with those two, Palmieri and Zajac coming in? I think they both make up for it.
Maybe bringing Zajac in, you kind of add by numbers as opposed to being able to replace one for one. And Zajac, he's not the player he used to be either, but he'll be a great depth guy for the Islanders as well. So, but I don't know. I think it was a great move for them. They needed to bolster their offense after they lost Lee. But I keep hearing all this talk about, wow, the Islanders, watch out, they're a contender now after making this trade. And I'm just like, they just lost one of their best forwards.
Okay, but how long has he been out now? He's been out for a little bit because I've had him in fantasy and he's been gone for a while. And we're talking about a team that in 42 games played has 27 wins, 4 overtime losses, and roughly 58 points, tying them with Washington. And they have the same winning percentage, which is 0.69. And that's off NHL.com. So if it's late, it's because they're terrible at updating their stuff, not me. Okay. But that's a team that's doing really well.
They are. Absolutely.
Mass Mutual East. I said that right. They're doing
Mass
really well.
Mutual owes us 50 cents now for that plug.
Yeah, that's right. Sponsor us, please.
Like the Scotia North Division.
Exactly.
We made
but essentially, even though that they've lost this player, this team's still performing. This team's still a threat. They are ahead of Pittsburgh. They are ahead of Boston. If I had to look at this right now, and I'll be honest, I don't have a huge ton of faith in Washington, and that's maybe just me. But the Islanders, to me, look like probably the best team out of those 4, at least at this stage. That's where I'm at.
By the way, it's March 11th that Anders Lee went out.
Yeah, it's months ago,
He's
dude.
been gone for a month.
But about a month. About a month. Yeah.
They're
They're still a great team.
Track on.
They're still a great team. They bolstered their offense. But I think they would prefer to have Anders Lee back. But there's definitely still a great team. Absolutely.
I think he's done, isn't he, for the season?
He's done for the year.
He's done for the he had ACL. He has to get surgery.
Yeah.
Oh, but his MCL's fine. So come on, tape it up.
What do you need to be a star in this league? One of those
ACL
things.
surgery.
Yeah,
to
you just need
repair.
one. You got 2. The Lord gave you 2 for a reason. You just need 1. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I want to jump ahead to a trade that's not a big trade, but has some kind of big team applications to it. And this is a little bit of a weird one, but I'm going to point out the fact that the Colorado Avalanche, potentially a Stanley Cup favorite, if not the Stanley Cup favorite, made a trade with the San Jose Sharks, acquiring Devan Dubnyk for Greg Pateryn and a 2021 5th-round pick. Colorado last year suffered a little bit when they lost their goaltender, and they had to rely on Hutchinson. Yeah, both their goaltenders. And it ended up becoming a big thing. It's like that one mark where it's like, if we didn't have this, could we have done so much more? And I think we all agree that they probably could have, even though their goalies did play well. But it's kind of that thing where you're worried about it now. Like that itch is in your head. You can't get rid of it. You're thinking about it all the time. Is Devan Dubnyk the pickup that this team should have made? And if not, who else? Toss it up to anyone.
I'll say, go for it.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go, Sanjay.
All right. I'm going to say, is it the one that they need? I'm going to say no, they could have got something more. I mean, you look at their team right now and how they're built. A player like Nathan McKinnon, who should be getting $12 million, is only getting a shade under $7 million. So you got like $5 million there of like, imaginary cap to play with kind of thing. I would have liked to see them hit a home run and try to go for Taylor Hall. I mean, you look at the asking price, it wasn't that much. And you never know, right? Like maybe he could resurrect his career playing alongside Nathan McKinnon, Gabriel Landeskog. They have a ton of great offensive players like Rantanen. So I would have said like, Dubnyk, yeah, he's a good insurance policy, but he's like an insurance policy against like a meteor striking your house. It's like, yeah, like it's good to have, I guess, but like the chances of that happening are pretty slim that he's going to be forced into service this year in the playoffs.
Well, and even with bringing in, a backup to your backup goalie, couldn't they have found someone better than Dubnyk? I mean, he has an .898 save percentage, a negative 9.3 goals saved above expected this year, right between Carter Hutton and Jacob Markstrom. Like he just hasn't been good this year.
Leave Markstrom out of this, okay?
I had to throw him in there for you there, Sanjay. He hasn't been good this year. He wasn't good last year. He was a really good goalie for like half a decade with Minnesota, but I mean, his play has fallen off. And you look at some of the goalies that were out there, like David Rittich, which I'm sure we'll get into potentially, or like Jonathan Bernier, like no one picked him up. I mean, they're just better options than Devan Dubnyk. So I'm curious as to what the asking price was for some of those goaltenders, at least.
And to play the opposite point, it is an insurance policy, and we have seen kind of a pattern with Devan Dubnyk. He plays himself kind of out of lineups, and then all of a sudden he reignites his career. This happened with the Oilers. It happened until he got to Arizona. I believe he was with Nashville. He was being paid by 3 different teams at once. It was Nashville, Montreal, Edmonton, and he went to Arizona, and that's where Sean Burke really pumped his tires back up, and then he went to Minnesota. Now we're seeing him kind of peter out with Minnesota, saw him peter out again with San Jose. This might be the flame that's needed for him to get back in. And as a supporting role, it might be better for him, and he might find his game again with a different goaltending coach. And they're not asking him to be number one. Grubauer is doing great. He's got 24 wins, 8 losses, 1 overtime loss. But the next guy after that is Johansson. He's got 3 wins, 5 losses, 2 overtime losses. That's, let's stack it up to 7 losses, 3 wins. That's just not good enough for a backup. And you've got a guy who's been a bona fide number 1 goaltender for quite a few years in Minnesota. And, I don't think it's a bad bet to take.
How long is Pavel, what's his, Francouz? Is that how you say his last name? How long is he actually out for? Any idea?
No clue.
Because he's really their backup, right? But he's on LTIR.
Yeah, because they pulled the other goaltender from Buffalo in a trade earlier this year, which also shocked people because they're like, that's the goalie you're getting? And then they did this move and everyone's like, that's the goalie you're getting?
Mm-hmm.
But how much you think about it? You're in game 7, your goaltender goes down, you look on the bench and you see Devan Dubnyk. Are you feeling confident?
No.
I'm not.
I honestly be like, okay, I guess if you put it in that scenario, he has done it before. He's got playoff experience. I'm more confident than whoever you mentioned before. That's 3-7. I mean,
but he's 3-9.
3-9.
He's got a worse
record.
record.
What's the old song by Toby Keith? I ain't as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was. So
we don't know
you roll the dice and you hope he can play as good once, and that's all you need him for.
True enough. Adam, nothing? Okay. We're going to go to the other one here, which is
I said my piece.
David Savard getting traded.
They got
from
the
Columbus Blue Jackets in a 3-way trade with the Detroit Red Wings, eventually making his way to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, Savard was basically one of the big D-men on the board. So this is a big D-man going to essentially the potentially repeating Stanley Cup champions. Why is it that you think that they went after a player like David Savard as opposed to another type of player, whether that be a forward or more of a puck-moving defenseman? What was it about David Savard that they needed? Do you think this lineup needed?
Well, you talk about insurance on the in the net. I think this is insurance on the D line for the Tampa Bay Lightning. You know, you got a history with your number one D man going down and having a bit of a band-aid and Hedman. I think the more depth you can get in that position, the more confidence you have in, you know, your forwards going forward, and you know, it's also good too because, like, you know, it brings in a guy. You know, they could put any defenseman on this team, and Vasilevsky is still going to feel confident. He's the best goaltender in the league, and like, I think he's gonna ease some nerves bringing on any defenseman.
And when you look at the Lightning's defense, they're very strong on the left side, but not so much on the right. They're a bit shallow there. So this helps strengthen that side of the defensive core, right? Like he's a top 4 defenseman, big man. You know, he'll play close to 20 minutes for you.
Big man. You think you're a big man?
He's a big man.
Come at me.
He'll play big minutes. You know,
Who do you think you are? I am. I'm going to bring that into every episode. Who do you think you are? I am. Greatest sports quote of all the time.
You retired this year. Anyways, continue, Ryan.
Well, he's a big guy. You know, he'll play physical, block shots, play on the penalty kill. He'll help them out a lot, and like I said, strengthen that right side on their defense.
Yeah, I honestly think this was a good trade. It's interesting that they had to do a 3-way trade, but is this the thing that gets Tampa Bay over the hump to help basically guarantee that they're going to that final?
Kucherov coming back does.
I think that's your better play. Now, if you don't play hockey for a whole year, you're probably not going to be as good. But Kucherov at 60% is better than most people at 100%.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And you just need to get through that first round. By then, he should be back up to speed.
And you know what? How does he handle those first heavy hits that come at him? That's another thing. That's my question with Kucherov. The players know he's going to be sore or that he's rusty. They're going to hit him. They know he's been injured. They're going to target him. It's just going to happen. That's the nature of the game and the nature of winning. So my question is, how long can he remain healthy? And if he can, they've got a really good chance of repeating. But if he can't, man,
what if he gets hit and then Savard just beats the crap out of whoever hit him, takes the penalty for it, lets you know don't touch him ever again?
Yeah,
exactly. Right. Well, Kucherov's been his whole life. People have been trying to hit him. Right. He's always been better than anyone else on the ice. So much like Connor McDavid, he knows how to avoid the hits, and he'll have his head up. I don't think he'll be caught down. I don't think that'll be an issue.
Oh, he's relentless. Like last year in the playoffs, he was getting hit all the time. He just get right back up and go out and score a goal. So, you know, I was very impressed with his play last year in the playoffs.
And you made that comment about McDavid, but Giordano really finds him in. Oh, I mean Giordano, not Neo.
Norris, that's Mr. Norris to you, okay? I know you
Mr.
don't know what
Norris.
That looks like, winning a Norris Trophy in Edmonton, but
just like you guys don't know what multiple cups looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh. Anyways,
they kept Messier.
Yeah. Who wants to vote that that's a yes? Put your hand up.
What's that?
What?
That they would have won a 6th cup if they'd kept Messier that year. In '94. I don't think so either. They lost Anderson. They lost a lot of those other guys. That's the only reason.
They would have stayed.
They were older
if they had Gretzky.
The real issue
was their goalie.
Their real issue, they had Ranford. Their real issue was that Pocklington couldn't afford anything anymore. And his businesses were going down, and he kept trading guys away to make money on his American businesses. That's essentially what happened.
Well, and Pittsburgh had Paul Coffey too, right? So Edmonton didn't even have him. Like that team,
but they won cups without him, though. I mean,
that
they
team
won
was
2 cups without him.
I think '94, the Devils lost to the Rangers in Game 7. So could those Edmonton team beat the Devils with Brodeur, Stevens? Like, it would have been a heck of a series.
Oh, absolutely.
The last chance that they really had was '91, and they were so depleted by the time they got to the North Stars. I think the North Stars just took them out, and then after that, that was it. I think Messier was injured that playoffs, but the way she goes, man. We're going to talk about the big trade, probably one of the 2 big trades of the day. I guess this is actually the 11th, so yesterday, not today. But it was kind of I guess there's a couple big trades. I shouldn't say that, but like two big trades. Most of the big ones kind of occurred the day before, which was a little weird. But the Toronto Maple Leafs acquire Nick Foligno from the Columbus Blue Jackets for a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick. Ryan, as an avid hater of Dubas and all of his moves, tell us why he did this correct and why you're happy about this. Actually, no, just go on about this.
Oh, man, I'm so pumped. So Foligno's the guy I was hoping they were going to get. I had said Boone Jenner, then he got hurt, and then I was saying Nick Foligno, and they got him. I couldn't believe it. I was so pumped. So Foligno brings elements to this team that they are lacking, right? So the biggest one is grit and physicality. Like right now, they're 28th in the league in hits. The Leafs leader right now in hits is Muzzin. He has 69 hits. Foligno has 109. So he's going to bring their physicality as a team up a whole level right there. The Leafs are also needing help on the penalty kill. They're ranked 20th in the league on the penalty kill right now. Foligno was one of the Jackets' top penalty killers, so he's going to help there too. He's a big man. He's going to do great things for the Leafs. Where does he fit? I've seen a lot of people talking about how he'll play left wing, either on that second line with Tavares and Nylander, or potentially left wing on the third line. That could potentially happen, but to be honest, I see him as their new third line center. And it's been pointed out to me on Twitter that he plays left wing. He's not a centerman. And that's true. He's played most of his career at left wing, but he has been called upon multiple times to play center throughout his career. And he's actually taken more faceoffs than Kerfoot or Engvall this year. And he has a better faceoff percentage, and he's a bigger body, and he's better defensively. And I think he just upgrades that position. So I could see him at the third line center spot, and that's where I could see him. And that will be fantastic, because I was a little nervous with Kerfoot and Engvall at center. Now I can see Foligno, third line center, and then Riley Nash, once he comes back in the playoffs, I can see him as fourth line center. And now you have two defensive players playing in those positions to shut down the opposition's top players.
So it certainly feels like the Leafs are all in this year. So why is this the year to do it?
Well, you look at it right now, they're second in the league. They're first in the North. They are winning games that they would often lose last year. They're playing better defensively. They're deeper, both on offense and defense. This is the first year where I can look at their defense and be completely happy with what I'm seeing. There isn't one player where I'm like, oh God, like they got to get rid of him. And that hasn't happened forever. You know, the biggest question was goaltending, but Campbell, I don't know if he won tonight. I haven't seen the score, but I mean, he has the record. No, they lost to Montreal.
I don't know. They were losing last I saw.
Yeah, they were losing 3-2 last I saw it, but it doesn't matter. He has the record, 11 straight wins to start off the season for him. So, I mean, he's brought some stability there. Of course, there's still concerns with injuries with him. Freddie Anderson. They lost? Okay. So there goes his streak at 11. But still, and then they brought in David Rittich to help out in that goaltending in case, you know, Freddie isn't ready to go, or if you know, it's just basically if their goaltenders just can't play because of injury. I just think they're so deep, and they're playing through things that you would often fall apart. And, you know, like you look at like the injuries that they had earlier, and the problems that they were having in their game, and they had that long stretch of losses, and they still stayed first in the North, and they've turned it around, have won a bunch of games in a row until tonight. It just feels like a different team this year. And I think this is the year to go for it.
So we're going to make a little bit of a jump, but still keep on the same topic here, just because I think this is probably as good of a time to gush if you're going to gush. But essentially, they also made a trade for Dave Rittich, and I can't remember what the return was, Sanjay. Do you remember?
Third-round draft pick in next year's draft.
So a third-round draft pick in next year's draft. Okay. So they've also shored up that. What are you guys as a group? What are people thinking is going on here with Freddie Anderson? Do you think he's done for the season, or do we think he comes back and takes the number one, or is he essentially going to be the backup hero? Because the truth is as much as Campbell's got those 11 wins, those aren't consecutive games or back-to-back nights. He has had a very meticulously spaced out, planned schedule, and in so much so that after games he's not always at practice the next day and everything else. So they've been very much What's the word they used to always use for Kawhi Leonard? Load management. He's
Load
been very
management.
load management, kind of handled by the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, and plus
So-
he's had multiple injuries this year too, right? So that's spaced
Also-
up the games as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
good point, actually. When Kachuk dirtily landed on, no, I'm kidding, Sanjay, I'm kidding. But so where are you guys thinking here? Like, what's going on with Freddie Anderson? Is he going to be back, or is this going? And when he does come back, is he going to be the number one? We'll let non-Flames fans answer this one.
Well, it's obviously borderline because they're trying to garner some experience in net. And like, I was thinking about it last night and I was like, God, they've got Anderson, they've got Campbell, they've got Hutchinson, now they have Rittich. Like, they've got a plethora of goalies that are decent, at least, you know? So there's got to be some speculation that this could lead into the playoffs and that his injury is affecting him longer than what they expect. And who knows? Maybe they're ready to move on from Anderson, which seems a little weird at this point because you've got, you know, some guys that aren't really bona fide number one starters, right? Whereas Anderson is. But yeah, you're trying to cover up the Band-Aid.
I don't think he was coming back after this year with the Leafs. I got the feeling that this was it. This was the last ride with him, and they would find a different solution moving forward because of either money, age, or term. But
And that sounds right, Baron, because why would you overload with a bunch of goaltenders, especially NHL starters, if not backups, right? Or career backups. And Hutchinson, like Campbell was a backup and Rittich is a backup. So like you're kind of betting on one of those guys taking a step like Jack Campbell did. But what the future holds for him, I also agree. I don't think it's in Toronto.
I've heard speculation that medical, and this is just speculation, but that the medical staff actually cleared him. But I've heard that Freddie Anderson is the kind of goalie that needs to feel good, or he's not a great player to play through injury, and he's almost it sounds like he's sitting himself out until he feels like he's ready to go.
So kind of like a Dustin Byfuglien situation where I've had a surgery, you say it's fine, but it doesn't feel fine.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, he played when obviously he didn't feel comfortable earlier, and that's when he went on that really bad stretch. And so it feels almost like he's waiting until he feels like he'll come back and actually play well. And so I'm not sure. I have no idea if he's going to come back. It sounds like he's going to come back before the playoffs. Otherwise, if he was basically out until the playoffs for sure, the Leafs could have used up the entire LTIR space, but they didn't. They've maneuvered the cap so that if he's able to come back, they can put him back on the roster and make some maneuvering and fit him in the cap. So I think he's coming back before the end of the season. But obviously they're getting David Rittich because they have no idea at this point how he's going to play and what he's going to be like. And he played so poorly that last stretch there that you can't rely on that. Plus Jack Campbell's playing hurt, right? So Jack Campbell goes out in the playoffs, and then Freddie Anderson is playing like the Freddie Anderson just before he decides to go on LTIR, or the team put him out on LTIR. If he plays like that, they're hooped, right? So, they got another security blanket in David Rittich. And, I think there were better options out there than David Rittich. I let that be known. Like, I was really hoping to go for Jonathan Bernier or Linus Ullmark. It sounds like they were trying to kick the tires on Ullmark, but for whatever reason, that wasn't going to work. But I mean,
Ullmark sounds like he's getting an extension in Buffalo.
Is that what
it sounds like they're working towards that. Yeah,
Gotcha.
At least that's what they said earlier.
He's going to sign in Buffalo?
A sure thing's a sure thing.
I suppose so. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's only 31 positions for starting goaltender. So, if you have, correction. Thank you very much. There's going to be 32.
You never know. Maybe they'll steal him.
Yeah. So, but I mean, David Rittich, he's okay. Like he was like a 902 save percentage this year, which is below average, but as a third string goalie, that's fine. And I probably still feel more comfortable putting him in than Hutchinson, even though Hutchinson's played fairly well this year. There's just a bigger body of work behind Rittich.
So Sanjay,
sorry, go ahead, Baron.
Oh, I was going to actually just toss to you on a question, but you say what you want to say about Rittich, and then I'll toss to you.
David Rittich, he's very Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like one time he'll have a stretch and he'll be fantastic. I think back to when the Flames finished first in the Western Conference. He was fantastic up until the All-Star break. And then he struggled really mightily, and Mike Smith actually got the starting job in the playoffs, and he started game one, and he was terrific. But Rittich, and then next year, Rittich again had a hot streak. You know, he was doing really good. Cam Talbot came in. Cam Talbot actually got the start in the playoffs. So, you know, if we're bringing in a guy for an insurance policy in the playoffs, his entire playoff resume is like 22 minutes against Dallas when we were like getting torched, like 6-2 or 6-3 or something. So he doesn't have any playoff experience to speak of, but when he's hot, he's a terrific goalie. Made the All-Star game last year. So in that respect, you know, if you get him when he's hot, you guys are getting a terrific goaltender. But when he's not hot, and we've seen it, the game against Ottawa, he gives up a goal from center ice, hits his head against the door. He's a fiery character. So hopefully you guys get him in the good side, because he seems like a good person.
I wonder if he won over Dubas when Calgary was playing Toronto, and he basically won that game for Calgary and just stoned all the Leafs. You know, he played fantastic that game. So hopefully that's the guy we're getting.
So have these moves solidified Toronto as the top team in the North Division? It's always kind of conversation. They already have a healthy lead on every other team. But is this essentially is this a guaranteed second round, third round team now?
Well, nothing's guaranteed, but on paper, I would say yes.
There you are. Ryan has guaranteed the Toronto Maple Leafs are his third.
I never want to guarantee anything because I don't want to jinx anything. I don't want to jinx anything.
Plan the parade right down Bay Street. Here we go, Toronto.
But again, I talk about this depth, right? So at forward, you're looking at come playoff time, you're looking at sitting two very good players. Like you might be sitting Joe Thornton or Pierre Engvall or Riley Nash. You know, you're not going to be able to fit everyone in. On defense, they picked up Ben Hutton. Great pickup. I could see him challenging Travis Dermott for that number 6 spot. I could. No, he actually has some pretty decent numbers right up there with Dermott. And I mean, I've been very happy with Dermott. You know, maybe just keep them the way things are going because it's working. But, you know, I'd be very happy. At least Ben Hutton has experience as opposed to before. Okay, now we're calling up our rookies, you know, Liljegren or Sandin, who haven't been able to play very much at all this year in the NHL. So, again, the depth that they're bringing in, they address some very major needs in terms of, like I said, that physicality that you need in the playoffs with Foligno, defensive play with Nash and Foligno and Hutton. You know, the only big question for me is goaltending, and hopefully they have enough options now that it'll work out for them. But you look around the rest of the North, Winnipeg, they really needed a top 4 defenseman. They just got a depth defenseman. Okay. Well, we'll just, you're looking around the North, but you're asking, does this help put them above the rest of the North Division?
Why do we have a document if you're just going to go through every single name and compare them to the
all right, Leafs? I won't go into specifics, but just generally overall, they made a lot of moves, the Leafs, to help bolster their lineup for the playoffs, whereas the rest of the teams just did a little tinkering.
Right.
Maybe Montreal did a bit more than that, but most of the teams just did a little tinkering here and there. And so, yeah, I think that does help separate it a little bit even more.
I do like what Toronto has done. To counter Ryan's point, though, they're bringing in guys that know how to win maybe around. Where's the experience?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Boom! This has been an Adam interruption.
Well, at least they have players on the team now that have won around. Riley Nash was with Boston.
McDavid.
Riley Nash was with Boston.
Thornton has gone to the finals.
Thornton's gone far.
Spezza.
Simmons has gone with Philadelphia. They went to
Simmons
the second round.
Yeah.
Muzzin won the cup.
Foligno.
Anderson.
No, I also have Bogosian who won the cup.
I just like poking the bear.
Okay, we're going to move on here because we're already at like 40 minutes. So I want to talk about one of the other big trades to occur. It was essentially with the Toronto Maple Leafs bitter rival, the Boston Bruins. And the Boston Bruins did two moves. One, which I think is a sneaky good move, which was getting Riley Smith for a third in 2022. And I think Riley Smith is a very functional defenseman. So that's a hell of a move there. But the other one, which I think was really good, was they got Taylor Hall and Curtis Lazar for a second-round pick and Andres Bjork. And when that happened, I think everyone fan-wise was really shocked by that haul, that Buffalo was only able to get so much for Taylor Hall. And I don't know that the media or the actual hockey world itself was as surprised. But where are you guys standing on this? Are we surprised that Taylor Hall went for so little? Or is this a reputation thing? Or is no movement clause? Like, what do we think happened here in this situation?
Well, Holly Molly, they got a good play on the left wing. Hopefully, you can bring it back. Sorry, I just wanted to say Hall in a Boston accent. I don't know.
Hopefully, there's no one from Boston listening.
Yeah.
Given our numbers, I doubt.
We could take it to the parking lot. Anyways, I don't think Hall is done producing at the level that Hall, like, we expect him to produce at. You surround him by players that know how to win, such as, Marchand, Bergeron. I'm interested to see how he does and how he fits into the mix in Boston. Who knows? Like, it's been a tough, hard career for Taylor Hall. He couldn't win in Edmonton, right? It was the curse of the first rounds. Then he goes to New Jersey, gets traded for Larson, right? Again, they make the playoffs one year. He actually does pretty good in the first round, but they're eliminated. Again, the following year, they get a first-round draft pick. Then he goes to Arizona. They make the playoffs, right? They make
qualifying, I think, wasn't it?
Qualifying,
qualifying, right? So barely. And then he goes to Buffalo. And oh God, like that trash fire was horrible. Like, honestly, you looked at that team. I looked at that team at the beginning of the year and I was like, man, this team's going to be exciting to watch. Mm-hmm. They are. They've got depth. They got Hall there on the left wing with Jack Eichel. I was like, and Reinhardt on you've got a solid first line. And then you've got Eric Stahl coming in. They made that acquisition. I thought they looked really good on paper. Boy, did they ever manage to take that piece of paper and put the flame to it, because it was awful. They set a franchise record. I think a league record in consecutive losses. Horrible. So I hope he finds it. I know he was quoted as saying, like, it's going to be fun to be on a winning team. And, like, but who knows? Like, what happens if he signs in Boston next year? My prediction,
Boston's going to fall.
Yeah,
they're going to be last place and get the first overall pick.
I'd be so annoyed.
I doubt they'll be that bad, but
I do too.
They're in bad. They're in rough shape right now. Like, they're in fourth in their division. They have an
aging
core.
Just got stomped last night, 8-1.
Yeah.
But having trouble with DeBrusk. Like, DeBrusk isn't producing like he used to. I don't know what's going on there.
And he had COVID too. I thought he was one of the COVID guys.
Very well could have. Like that could be the X factor this year. Period. Yeah. Is COVID and its effects on players and teams. Right? We've seen it. There's no doubt in my mind. That's what's happened to Buffalo and why they were so god awful this year. COVID bit them in the butt, and you know what? They're just starting to win games. So maybe they're starting to feel better. But, like, I don't think that 2-week COVID recuperating time is realistic.
Mm-hmm.
When you were asking Baron about, were you surprised that Buffalo didn't get more? I was. Going into the trade deadline, I didn't think they would get a first, but then, Columbus got a first for Savard, and Columbus got a first for Foligno, and New Jersey got a first for Palmieri, and these were players, right, well, except for maybe Palmieri, but, like, most of the players are guys I wouldn't really expect to get a first for, and so I thought, okay, this is the market, and so for sure Taylor Hall is going to get a first, because out of all those players, Taylor Hall's the best player. Even this year, he was on pace for 42 points this year. I mean, he was right on pace with like Palmieri and definitely ahead of Foligno, and David Savard's a defensive defenseman. So like I thought for sure they get a first round pick, and they ate salary, right? They ate 50%.
Yes.
So it wasn't the fact that they didn't eat salary either. They ate salary. So how do you not get a first round pick for a former Hart Trophy winner whose very least amount is a decent second line wiener production, right? And then if he turns his game around, he's bringing you point per game or more production.
Yeah,
that to me is crazy. And the fact that they did it so early, like why not wait an extra day and make them sweat and maybe try to get a little bit more out of Boston at the very least. Like, I heard because like the no movement clause, they were really limited as to which teams they could even talk to, and his salary cap, right? I mean, $8 million. That's hard to find teams that can fit $4 million onto their roster. But still, like at least wait to the very end and see if you can like even pick up like another pick out of it, like a third round pick or something. Like, holy cow! Like Buffalo, what's going on with you? Like just. Incompetence. This franchise is just a joke. Even Brandon Montour, to be honest, he plays over 20 minutes a game. He's better offensively and drives possession more than Savard does. Why isn't he getting a first round pick? And what did they get for him? A third round pick?
I think it was
Buffalo
a third.
Is a joke.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Bennett got more than Taylor Hall.
Just like you're going to kill the lead in. You're just like, I got a good lead into this one. There's Sanjay stabbing it. Like, so the next
this episode's been hilarious. This episode's been hilarious. I just watched Baron and he's like,
no, my transitions, no.
But essentially, like as Sanjay ruined, Sam Bennett, who was a former fourth overall pick, goes to the Florida Panthers for him and a 6th round pick for Emil Heineman and a 2022 second round pick. That's a better return than what the Buffalo Sabres got for Taylor Hall. Go ahead, Sanjay. Say what you were going to say. Get it out there.
No, I'm just saying, like, Taylor Hall. Yeah, I mean, the thing that always amazes me was people say, like, oh, we're not going to give up our first round this year. If you think you're close to winning the Stanley Cup this year, this draft is so unpredictable. There's been so few games in the WHL. The OHL didn't even have a season. So if you get a late first-round pick, who cares? If you can win a couple rounds in the playoffs, just give it up for this guy. I mean, as you mentioned, he won the Hart Trophy not that long ago. He's having a down season, but everyone's having a down season in Buffalo. Once you get him out of there, I guarantee he's going to produce more than when he was in Buffalo. So the fact that people are like, oh, I'm not giving up a first, it's like, you have no idea what this draft is going to entail. Like, this is like a draft like no other draft where guys that would normally go in the top 10 are going to be going in the second, third round. So if you get a late first rounder, it's a crapshoot. This is more of a crapshoot than any other year. So I think people should have factored that in when they were assessing, first round pick. It was like, not all first round picks are built equally. And in my opinion, this draft is a soft draft. And if I was a team that was on the cusp and I thought, hey, I have a shot to win the Stanley Cup, you can have my first round pick because it's going to be number 31 overall. So, or number 32 next year. So why not? So I don't know.
I think that's like an easy comment to make, but I think if you look at scouting, like really look at scouting, you're not scouting a guy based on his final year. You have scouted him for previous years and so forth. So I still think guys have players that they're interested, or teams have players that they're interested in. And then at the draft, you can be more willing to be like, our guy's going to go in the second round. I'll trade away this first round pick for 2 second round picks and I can get these 2 players I like. And I think that's the kind of difference. But where I think you're right is if you think you have a chance, well, if you can win, why wouldn't you? And that's kind of the tough one. And I'm going to bring up the last big trade I want to talk about before we do some other stuff here, which is the under the wire trade, the last minute trade that came in, which was the Washington Capitals acquire Anthony Mantha from the Detroit Red Wings for Jacob Vrana, Richard Panik, a first round pick and a second round pick. First round pick this year, second round pick next year. Anthony Mantha in 42 games has 11 goals, 10 assists. Jacob Vrana in 39 games has 11 goals, 14 assists, and Panik has 3 goals, 6 assists. If you think Washington won this trade, put your hand up. Oh, wow. And if you think the Red Wings won this trade, put your hands up. So big.
Guys,
Okay, so
I mean,
I'll let it go. Why do you guys think that Detroit won this trade?
They got better return, more return, and better return than they gave up. Like, you've seen this in the past with Yzerman when he was with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He built that team, and he found depth in guys that even we were like, that's not a bad. Like, I just think that he is such a master as a GM now. It's weird because players turn GM. You don't really think like, he'll be okay, but does he have like the mind of like a general manager? Sure, he was a player, but you're seeing that like, and his trades and returns have been crazy. So
well, he built Tampa into a powerhouse.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he did. Like that Stanley Cup, like that man should have a Stanley Cup ring because he built that house, man.
Oh yeah,
they were terrible when he was there. They weren't terrible, but they lost those games.
Yeah.
Well, the thing I don't understand with this trade, to me, Vrana's the better player. Yeah. To me, like
they're
smaller.
Very consistent. Dom was putting out stuff through Haley Sylvan's account today. I don't know if you saw them, but they're statistically we're basically on par with each other.
Right.
And
I saw
they got
that.
more than that.
And Vrana plays less minutes, and he has just about as many points or more points. And the point keeps being made that like Mantha is a bigger body. He's a big guy. And that's what Washington wanted. But even though Vrana's smaller, I was looking at his hits per 60. It's higher than Mantha. Anthony Mantha doesn't lay out the body that often.
But does Washington need guys that lay people out?
Well, why are you getting a big body? Why are they wanting that? The only thing I can think
to push off a puck. Hard to push off a puck.
But the giveaways, he has more giveaways than Vrana.
He also plays on a worse team than Vrana did.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, and he did have more minutes, so he is used to more responsibility. So maybe there's that, but I don't know. Like, to me, just looking at the stats, Vrana looks at least on par with Mantha, if not better. And then on top of that, you're getting a first-round pick and a second-round pick, plus another player. Holy shit!
It's like I don't know if it's just quite the screw job that Joe Sakic pulled when he got rid of Matt Duchene, but it's a hell of a haul. And when you're looking at Detroit, which is a team that kind of got screwed in the draft lottery last year, that's a pretty big pull that they got back for this one.
Like, both of their highs in goals are 25 goals each. They both have that as a high for goals. Like, where's the upgrade? Where's the upgrade?
There was talk that Vrana wasn't really working out the way they were hoping he would, and so maybe they think Mantha will, right?
Right. The big criticism against Mantha has always been his inconsistency. There will be times where he looks like a stud, and then there's times where he just sleeps.
Yeah.
Athanasiou.
I don't know if Athanasiou's looked like a stud the last two. He actually did at the start of this year. He was on fire.
Yeah, he was really good.
The start, and then I don't know. The Kings are the Kings. Okay, so we're at like roughly 55 minutes, but we're still going to do some stuff here. We're just going to talk about Canadian teams. So you can just list quickly a team that you think did better. Ryan, we already know that you think the Leafs did better. I think we all are in agreement on that. So we're not going to talk about them. How about you pick another team that you think did better or that you think did worse, made themselves worse? So I'll start with you, Ryan, if it's okay. I'm going to start with you, and you can tell me another team you think is better, worse, or blah.
Well, I'll say Montreal Canadiens got better with that trade with Eric Stahl. That's just more depth scoring in their offense. I'd have to look at some of their other moves from today. I know they got like some depth defensemen. Let's see, John Merrill. If anyone else knows who else they got today.
They lost
Mete.
Yeah.
Did someone pick him up?
Ottawa's playing tonight.
Ooh, like that's a good pickup.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that would be my pick for a team that got a little bit better.
Ottawa. Yeah, that's a great defense.
Mete is huge. But Mete with Shabbat.
Basically, I'm just looking at the top four, right? Because I mean, we know who's going to the playoffs, And yeah, I thought Montreal did a decent pickup with Eric Stahl and some other depth pieces.
Yeah.
You need to be gentler with Sanjay.
Yeah, Sanjay, how about you go next?
Okay, yeah, I think the Flames got worse this year, but I think in the future looks brighter than when it did 24 hours ago. Here's my thinking to that. The Flames, 24 hours ago, the Flames are notorious for going on these runs after the trade deadline where they win a ton of games and then their draft pick gets worse and worse and worse. And with the Flames giving up Rittich and Bennett, I don't think they're as good as they were 24 hours ago, and they got no roster players in. So in my opinion, I think Tree was honest with himself, Tree Living and Sutter. They were probably honest with themselves and said, look, what's the point of us, giving up assets, making the playoffs just to lose first round to the Leafs, if I'm being honest. Like, I'd rather miss the playoffs than lose first round to the Leafs because I don't want that hanging over this franchise that we lost to the Leafs. So I think that's smart. And they were smart that they went after not this year's draft because they mentioned it's a crapshoot, but next year's draft. So they got, I think, 5 draft picks in the first 3 rounds of next year's draft. Nice. And the way people are talking about next year's draft, they're saying it could be something special. Like, they said the top 3 players could be like franchise players, and it's going to be a special draft. So Tree Living now has bargaining chips next year. If he sees a guy that he wants to move up, he's got an extra second, he's got an extra third. He can make that trade and get that really like stud player that the Flames need. So,
and what kind of draft is it going to be again?
2022 draft.
What kind?
Was that?
What kind of draft? Special. You said special.
It's going to be a special draft. It's going to be a special entry draft.
All right. Go ahead there, Adam.
I think that Ottawa slightly got better. And that was with Mate picking him up off waivers. A team that I think did blah would be the Oilers and the Winnipeg Jets. I just think they're staying pat. I don't think they want to lose what's working for them. At the same time, I think that Winnipeg's defense isn't that great, and what they lack in defense, they do make up for in net with Hellebuck, but how much can you put on his shoulders? Especially going into the playoffs, if they are stacked as they are now, they're playing the Oilers. And so far, the Oilers have their number with 4 wins, 2 losses. So, and the Oilers, they got, who was it? Kulikov,
yeah.
Yeah. Not bad. Like, they got a little bit more defensively sound, but at the same time, like, they're loaded. They're loaded on defensemen. And I'm going to be like, who's playing? Who's playing? Nurse, Bear, Larson, Jones.
I think Jones
Russell,
is sitting.
Kukuk,
Jones will be
Kulikov. Me too. And which, he's kind of struggled a bit this year, but Legason, like, we've got all these guys. Bouchard. I would love to see Barry. We've got.
Although I did ask last time.
The amount of.
I was just going to say, I did ask. I remember last time I asked, do you think actually they need more help on defense, since it's their defense that, is what they need more help on in terms of the amount of chances and goals they allow, as opposed to offense. I mean, they're among the elite teams, right? So, I mean, why isn't that a good thing that they brought in a defensive defenseman that can help out in that regard?
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning, actually, and I softened on the trade. I was like, yeah, it's not a bad acquisition, but like, wait, they could fill a forward squad with the amount of defensemen they've got right now.
I think
you never can have enough defense in the playoffs.
Yeah,
they always are dropping.
And that's what I was thinking. That's where my head kind of went. I was like, they're building for the playoffs.
And Kulikov is like a top 4, isn't he? Like, he'll be like their number 3 or number 4.
It's a lot like Larson.
Which
like
is
Larson.
Great.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a depth piece. Like, that's a substantial piece to put into your lineup. So
what it does essentially is it slots down. Like, their left D is where they're weak. They have lots of good right D guys, but their left D is where they're weak. Like, if you have to debate between Russell, Legason, and Jones, no one's excited about either 3 of those. And now you don't. You rotate those 3 into your 6th spot, and that's it.
Yep.
And that's what's happening. So that part's good. But I think the other problem is that right now we know that there's some scoring struggles outside of the major two, and so people wanted a winger, but they also needed a third line center. They needed someone who could win faceoffs and do that. And I'm glad that they did not overpay to get Glendening, or was it Glendening? What was his name?
Luca Glendening, like the centerman, yeah.
Yeah, and so that was a huge conversation piece, and I think that's why it feels so let downish, is that not much was done.
Right.
But we were kind of, the conversation was, and then there was all these rumors that they were in on Hall, and it sounds like they were never in on Hall, especially with this no trade clause.
There was zero cap space with Edmonton, so I mean that makes it
and
tough.
It's tough, and I think people are struggling because Toronto's window is open. Like, it is very much open, because this is the core. They have all these guys, and they are going to lose some big pieces moving forward. Whereas Edmonton's should be open, but it isn't. Whereas next year it should open.
You're losing a lot of cap space, a lot of contracts, contract dollars this offseason. I think next season is the one where watch out for Edmonton.
Yeah,
because
and that's
Holland will actually finally be able to put his fingerprints on. Like he's done some really good stuff and be able to do like some stuff around the fringes. But I think this offseason is when he's going to be able to actually like put the team together that he wants to put together.
Agreed. And that's, I think, the window opens next year, which is tough when you have two guys who are leading the league in scoring and your window's not fully open. But I honestly think a lot of this is a coin toss. Could the Leafs lose to the Jets? Yeah. Could they lose to Montreal? Yeah. Could they lose to Edmonton? But I would think,
it could.
They just haven't during the regular season, but that doesn't matter, right? Like, whatever.
Yeah.
So we're just going to move on to the last couple quick segments here, just because we're getting near the end of time. But I want you guys to think quickly for a minute or two about who your winners and losers are. And if someone shoots and uses one of your winners, then I want you to try to pick another winner. So come up with a couple, and if not, if someone needs a second, that's fine. I got a couple I can pull from here as well. So Ryan, I'll let you go with who's your winner and who's your loser today.
I'm going to go with my winner. I'll take Boston Bruins. I think they got the best player of the bunch and the best deal. And then they picked up really good defenseman, Mike Riley, as well. So because of the players that they got, plus the fact that they didn't give up a first for it, I'll go with Boston.
And let's do winners first, and then we'll do losers.
Okay.
Go ahead, Adam.
My winner for this year would be the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think they definitely cashed in on veteran leadership. They are stacked down the middle, and Dubas has given them a really good recipe for success in the playoffs.
I like that too.
Me, I'm gonna go off the board. We didn't really talk about this trade, but Pittsburgh Penguins bringing in a guy like Jeff Carter, who's won Stanley Cups, to be your number 3 center, or fill in on the second line, or join the power play. This year, he's kind of done a little bit better. His career had kind of faltered for a bit, but I think he's kind of brought it back this year. And playing alongside Crosby or Malkin, this guy could be a 20-goal scorer again. So I'm going Pittsburgh.
And I'll just go for a sneaky two-way tie here. And I'm going to say the Florida Panthers, who have made themselves look good. Go Cats. And I think that they're going to be a hell of a hard team to play against. And I actually think Columbus has done an amazing job getting all those draft picks for their players.
Lots of draft picks.
So that's it. So let's go in reverse order here. We're going to go for the losers of today. And we're going to start with Son Jazzy again.
Yeah, you've sent this tweet, and I'm sorry if I stole yours, but I'm going to go with the Mighty Ducks, the Anaheim Ducks. They had a ton of players that they could have moved. They're not going anywhere. I think they're second last in the league right now, and they could have got some more picks and more prospects. So I don't know what they're doing, because they have some very interesting players. Yep. And even Getzlaf, I think his contract's up now. He may have said, look, I'm not moving for whatever reason, but they could have at least kicked the tires, and maybe they could have got something for him. So I'm going with the Ducks.
Adam?
I'm going to say Buffalo's been shat on so much. I got to leave them alone. I'm going to say I got my phone out here. Let's see.
Do you need a minute? Do you want me to go to Ryan first?
I'm going to say, yeah, I'll say the Colorado Avalanche. They didn't really upgrade like they should have in net, and they were looking for another winger, and there was a lot of talk about Hall being an attractive piece for them to target, and they didn't bring anything like that in. It was just upgrading a backup. That wasn't much of an upgrade.
Right.
Well, I think they brought in like a few other players, like some depth defensemen or something like that.
You can cut that out post.
Nope, it's staying in. Know your shit.
We're leading with that.
Know your shit. There's our title.
I'll wave. That's yeah.
I was also going to go loser with Buffalo, but since Adam kind of shamed me for that, I'm not going to. I'll leave Buffalo alone. I'll go Carolina Hurricanes. You look at the top 4 teams in the NHL. Toronto and Tampa really did a lot to bolster their lineup. Colorado, obviously Adam pointed out, didn't do a lot, but they did some. Carolina didn't do anything. And, when you're one of the top 4 teams in the playoffs and you're looking around at the guys who are up at the upper echelon with you, and they all got better and you didn't, that's disappointing. And I think, if you're a player on that Carolina team, you're saying, what, you wouldn't give up a first-round pick to help us get over the top? Like, what the hell? What else do we have to do? Right. So yeah. I think if I was a player on the Carolina Hurricanes right now, I'd be pretty disappointed.
Well, and to counter that argument, like, do you really want to mess with a good thing that much? Right. That's another way to kind of look at it.
I think any team wants to get better, unless you're like, a fourth liner or someone who's going to lose a starting spot. Then probably deep down, you're like, crap. And or going into today going into after this trade deadline saying, yes, I still have my position. I still have my spot. But they all want to win the cup. And, if you can bring on a Taylor Hall or a Nick Foligno or a David Savard or, someone like that, it helps better your chances. And I think that would make most of the players happy.
And I'm going to go with the St. Louis Blues because this is a team that is on the cusp. They're not really looking like they're going to make a ton of noise in the playoffs. They seem to be in a little bit of a transition year, and they had a chance to move some players for value as well, and did not do that. And I understand that at this point they're ahead in the playoffs and they're starting to pick up some steam, but they're not feeling like a team that's going to do a ton of damage. And I think that was a missed opportunity. I actually picked them in Boston to miss the playoffs. So if they do, that would make at least one of my predictions right. And I feel like I was about a year early on Boston, but that's okay. That's the way it is. That wraps up this trade track recap episode, trade centric episode of Delayed Offside. Like, subscribe, share the pod if you want. If you want to send questions, please do to the Twitter account. Feel free to interact with us a bit. I know some of you are commenting on the YouTube channel. I think that's great. We had more stuff to talk about, but we got pretty depthful in here, so I think that's a pretty good time to call it quits. With that, I'm Baron.
I'm Adam.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Sanjay.
You're Sanjay? I'm sorry. And this is Delayed Offside. Have a great night. I always said have a great episode, but have a great night. Delayed Offside.